Chosen one, stop what you're doing right now, not because this is urgent, because you are. I need you to hear something that nobody, not your pastor, not your children, not the person lying next to you at night, has ever had the courage to say directly to your face. The years you grieve, the love you lost, the money that slipped through your hands like sand on a New York winter morning, the confidence that got swallowed whole by one too many betrayals, that was not an accident. That was not God looking away. That was a lesson your soul enrolled in before you ever drew your first breath. I know you. I know the 3 a.m. version of you sitting in a quiet kitchen, the whole house asleep, and you are wide awake, holding a weight that has no name. You have prayed the same prayer so many times, the words feel worn smooth like old wood. You have watched people around you, people who have not walked half the road you've walked, receive the very thing you have been begging heaven for, the relationship, the breakthrough, the peace of mind, and you sat there, silent, wondering if God simply forgot your address. I need you to lean in close right now, because this is the word you have been waiting years to hear. You were not weak. You were being stretched. You were not being ignored. You were being deepened. You did not just survive pain. You learned something your entire future requires. The roots that grow in winter, you never see them. The scaffolding hidden inside a building under construction, it looks like nothing from the outside. But pull that scaffolding away too early, and the whole structure collapses. That was the hidden work happening inside you. Iron does not become a sword by sitting still in sunlight. It enters fire. It gets struck again and again until the impurities burn away, and what remains is something the hand of God can finally work with. That fire, that was your soul lesson. And here is the thesis, the word I am building this entire message around. The next level coming for you is not simply relief from the pain. It is not just a roof over your head or a warm body beside you at night. It is blessing you can carry without losing yourself. It is wealth with peace. It is love with discernment. A life lived at a level that does not crush you, because the season you just survived built the shoulders to hold it. Before we go any further, if this message is finding you in a season where God has been rebuilding you in secret, type in the comments right now, I survived the lesson. Let heaven and earth know you are here. Let God witness your declaration. Because before I tell you why wealth and love are arriving together in the same season of your life, you need to understand what heaven was really doing while you thought your life was standing still. Let me read something to you, not from the Bible, not from a book, from your own private journal, the one you never wrote down but carried inside your chest for 20, 30, maybe 40 years. You asked God for love, and He gave you silence. You asked for financial relief, and the bills kept coming. You prayed for your family to come back together, and the distance only grew wider. You served faithfully, and got overlooked anyway. You trusted someone completely, and they used your vulnerability like a weapon. Does that sound familiar? Because what I just described is not a life falling apart. That is a curriculum. That is the most advanced spiritual classroom God ever constructed, and He enrolled you personally. Here is what nobody will say plainly. Most people pray for wealth, love, influence, and peace, but they never stop to ask the dangerous question, am I actually built to carry it? A mansion given to someone who never learned discipline becomes a ruin in 10 years. A great love given to someone still begging for approval becomes a prison. Money handed to someone still driven by fear becomes a trap. God is not cruel, He is thorough. He refused to give you the blessing before He built the character, because He loved you too much to watch the gift destroy you, so He put you in the furnace. And furnaces do not teach by making you comfortable. They teach by making you choose again and again in the dark, with no applause, with no evidence that any of it is working. Let me name the lessons. Because you need to hear your own history, called by its right name. He taught you to endure silence without losing faith. Seasons when you prayed, and the heavens felt sealed shut. No sign, no word, no breakthrough. James 1-3 says, "The testing of your faith produces hupomone," not passive waiting, but bearing up under crushing weight without collapsing. You bore the weight. You did not collapse. That lesson cost you years. He taught you to love without begging. You gave yourself fully to a spouse, a child, a friend, and they still chose distance, still chose silence. And you had to learn the most brutal spiritual truth. Pouring more of yourself into someone not assigned to your life does not fill them. It only empties you. God let you experience counterfeit love so you would recognize the real thing when it arrived. He taught you to keep your integrity when nobody defended you. They talked about you, misrepresented you, took the credit, and handed you the blame. And you stood there burning inside, and you did not retaliate. Proverbs 20:22 says, "Wait on the Lord, and he will save you." You waited. That is not weakness. That is weaponized obedience. He taught you to survive being overlooked. At this age, that lesson cuts the deepest. You watched younger, less experienced people step into rooms that should have had your name on the door. And quietly, painfully, God was asking one question. Can you find your worth in me alone, or do you still need a human to validate what heaven already certified? He taught you to stop chasing what he never assigned. There were doors you beat on for years that never opened. You kept knocking, kept believing your persistence could override divine redirection, until one day, exhausted and broken, you finally let go. And the moment you released it, something shifted. God cannot redirect a hand still clenched around the wrong thing. He taught you the difference between attention and love. This is the one that nearly destroyed you. You accepted crumbs of attention from people incapable of real love and convinced yourself it was enough. You shrank yourself to keep the peace. You forgave what should have been a hard boundary because the loneliness felt unbearable. God allowed the full hollowness of counterfeit affection so you would never again mistake being needed for being cherished. And he taught you to endure pruning without calling it abandonment. John 15:2, "Every branch that bears fruit, he prunes, that it may bear more fruit." Pruning is not punishment, but it feels like death. People were cut away, positions were removed, identities you built your life around gone. The branch does not understand why the gardener uses the blade. It only knows the cutting. Now hear this clearly. The lesson was never only about what left your life. It was about what had to die inside you. Fear, desperation, people-pleasing, panic, the relentless need to be chosen by something that was never sent by God in the first place. That had to die. And dying is not graceful. It happens in private, in the dark, with no applause, like surgery performed without an audience, like a chisel against stone, not destroying, but revealing. Every strike, removing what was never meant to stay. Like roots beneath frozen ground in January, invisible, seemingly dead but pressing deeper, while the world above sees nothing. Come spring, those roots hold a tree no wind can move. That is what God was building inside you, and I need you to receive this next sentence with everything you have. The lesson was costly because your next season is weighty. God does not use industrial-grade fire to prepare someone for an ordinary life. The price of your preparation is the exact measurement of what is coming. Stay with me, because in the next part, I am going to show you the sign that proves this lesson is almost complete. And it is not what you think. It is not excitement. It is not fire falling from heaven. It is not a sudden rush of clarity. It is something far quieter, something most people completely misread and walk right past without recognizing it. Something that, when I name it, you will know immediately because you are already living inside it right now. Let me ask you something that might stop you cold. Think about the last time someone said something that used to shatter you: a dismissal, a cold shoulder, a door shut in your face, and you notice something different inside yourself. Not numbness, not bitterness, not pretending it didn't hurt. Something quieter, something steadier. You paused instead of panicked. You discerned instead of begged. You walked away instead of chased. That was not weakness, chosen one. That was the proof. That was the soul lesson doing exactly what God designed it to do. Here is the truth that your enemy does not want you to understand. The evidence of your transformation is not that life got easier. It is that you became harder to manipulate. It is that you became easier for God to trust with more. Think about a bone that breaks and heals. Medical science confirms that the healed bone, that exact spot where the fracture was, becomes denser, harder, stronger than the original. The break did not weaken it. The break revealed what it was capable of becoming. That is what God was doing inside you. You are not the same person you were 3 years ago, 5 years ago, and you know it, not because the circumstances changed first, because something deep inside your chest changed, and you could not fully explain it to anyone, not even yourself. Until right now, you used to crave the approval of people who were never assigned to your life. You would bend yourself into impossible shapes, trying to earn a nod, a callback, an acknowledgement from people who did not even understand what they were looking at when they looked at you. And when they still walked away, you chased, you explained, you justified your own worth to people who could not afford what you carried. Do you do that anymore? No, you don't. That is the proof. You used to confuse chaos with chemistry. You thought the relationship that kept you up at 2 a.m., trembling and anxious and checking your phone, you thought that electric, exhausting, terrifying feeling was passion, was connection, was love. You thought the peace was boring. You thought calm meant nothing was happening. Proverbs 14:12 says it plainly. There is a way that appears to be right, but in the end, it leads to death. You have stopped walking that road, not because love isn't real, but because you finally learned the difference between fire that refines you and fire that simply consumes you. That is the proof. You used to mistake pressure for purpose. Every person who came to you with an urgent demand, a crisis that was somehow always your emergency, you felt obligated, you felt responsible, you gave away rest you could not afford, peace you desperately needed, time that was sacred, just to manage someone else's emotional chaos. And now, you're quieter, but you are stronger. You don't need every room to clap for you. You don't need the validation of people whose assignment was only to test you, not to carry you. You have stopped confusing someone's loud presence in your life with divine appointment. You have stopped mistaking pressure for purpose. And here is where this becomes the most important thing you will hear today. Steel is not tempered by one hit. A blacksmith strikes the same iron over and over, hundreds of times, in a rhythm of fire and force and cooling and fire again. Every strike is not punishment. Every strike is precision. The blacksmith is not angry at the iron. The blacksmith is building something that will last for generations. You endured the striking. You endured the heat. You endured the cooling that felt like abandonment. And here you stand, tempered, not broken, tempered. Your nervous system, your soul has finally stopped running emergency signals that do not serve you. What once sent you into full collapse now gives you a moment of pause. What once had the power to reroute your entire year with one phone call, you handle it, set it down, and move forward. Romans 5:4 calls this proven character. Not just patience, not just surviving. Proven character, the kind that can only be produced by going through the very thing that was designed to destroy you, and coming out the other side still intact, still soft, still open to God. And now I need you to hear this next line with everything inside you. Are you ready? The lesson is complete when you no longer need what once had the power to destroy you. Read that again slowly. The lesson is complete when you no longer need what once had the power to destroy you. That relationship that nearly erased you, you don't need it anymore. That approval that once controlled your every decision, you don't hunger for it anymore. That chaos you used to call home, it no longer feels like comfort. It feels like a foreign country you once lived in and will never return to. That is not just healing. That is graduation. That is God looking at you and saying what he said about Job, that man whom heaven itself called blameless after the fire, after the loss, after the stripping away of everything. Have you considered my servant? He is pointing at you right now, in the courts of heaven, saying, have you seen what they became? If that is where you are today, if you recognize your own name in these words, say it with boldness right now in the comments. I don't need what broke me. Say it like you mean it. Because you do. Because once God knows you no longer worship what hurt you, once heaven can see that the thing that once had a throne in your heart has been dethroned, he can finally trust you with what heals you. And what he is about to release into your life is not more pain dressed up in blessing. It is the real thing. The wealth with peace behind it. The love with discernment inside it. But first you need to understand what heaven was building while the lesson was running. Because what God was constructing in the invisible, while you thought nothing was moving, will change the way you see every single day of your past. Let me tell you something that the prosperity preachers will never say. Money is not the miracle. You are. Because here is the brutal, uncomfortable, absolutely liberating truth that most people never live long enough to understand. Wealth does not reveal who you want to be. It reveals who you already are. Strip away the fear, the pressure, the survival instinct, and whatever is left standing in the light of abundance. That is you, the real you, unfiltered. This is exactly why God does not hand provision to people who have not yet walked through the fire. Think about it. If the blessing had come 5 years ago, before the heartbreak, before the betrayal, before the long silent season where you learned to trust him with nothing in your hands, could you have carried it? Honestly, could you have carried it without losing your humility, without losing your gratitude, without letting it quietly replace the God who sent it? No. And deep down, you know that. Proverbs 10:22 says it plainly. The blessing of the Lord makes rich, and he adds no sorrow with it. No sorrow. Do you understand what that means? It means the timing is part of the blessing. God is not slow. God is precise. He was not withholding from you. He was protecting you from a version of abundance that would have cost you everything you just spent a decade building on the inside. Now, here is what I need you to understand about wealth, because I refuse to cheapen this moment with shallow promises. When I say wealth is coming, I am not talking about flashy excess. I am not talking about something that makes the neighbors jealous and the IRS curious. I am talking about something far more sacred, far more human, far more desperately needed in your life right now. I am talking about breathing room. I am talking about the freedom to go to sleep on a Tuesday night without your chest tightening over what is due on Friday. I am talking about the grandchild who calls you and you can actually say yes without doing the math first. I am talking about the medical bill that does not send you into a quiet panic for 3 weeks. I am talking about finishing this chapter of your life not as a burden but as a blessing, not crawling to the finish line, crossing it with your head up. For those of you over 60, over 70, some of you over 80, wealth does not mean what it meant at 30. You are not trying to impress anyone anymore. You have buried dreams. You have buried people. You know what matters now. Provision at this stage means dignity. It means margin. It means legacy. It means peace around money, maybe for the first time in your life. And that kind of provision, mature, steady, purposeful provision, God assigns to mature, tested, purpose-built people. Not because he plays favorites, but because the storehouse that took years to fill requires someone who knows exactly what it costs to build it. In Joel 2:25, God makes a declaration that is staggering in its precision. He says, I will restore to you the years that the locust has eaten. The Hebrew word behind that promise is shalom. And shalom does not mean simple replacement. Shalom means wholeness. It means peace-filled completion. It means the court of heaven forces a repayment with interest. Not just what was taken, but honorable compensation for every year, every tear, every night you held on when letting go would have been so much easier. The vineyards that were stripped bare, they are being replanted. The oil jar you thought was empty, there is still oil in it, and it is not stopping until every vessel in your house is full. The rain you stopped believing would ever come, the ground has been cracked and thirsty long enough. What is about to fall on your life is not a drizzle. It is a long, soaking, redemptive rain. But here is the climax of everything I just said. And I need you to hold this sentence in your chest. God may not be bringing you childish riches. He may be bringing you mature provision, the kind that lets you breathe again. The kind that does not come with chaos attached. The kind that does not require you to compromise your soul to keep it. The kind that arrives quietly, settles deeply, and stays permanently because it was built on a foundation of character that took a lifetime to lay. If you are still with me right now, that is not an accident. This message found you because it was meant for you. Hit like right now. Stay with me, because the next part of this message may be the most personal thing I say to you today, because we are about to talk about why love comes in the same season as provision, not before, not after. And I promise you this, the love that comes next will not feel like your old pain dressed up in a new face. Now I need to speak to the part of you that nobody sees, not the strong part, not the part that shows up at church and says, I'm blessed. I am talking to the part that goes quiet when someone else announces their engagement, the part that flinches when a grandchild asks why you live alone, the part that has given so much love to so many people and quietly, in the darkest corner of your heart, wonders if anyone will ever choose you, not for what you can do, not for the strength you carry, not for the meals you cook or the prayers you offer, but simply for you. Can I tell you something that is going to cut right through? You have not been unlucky in love. You have been unprotected in love. There is a massive difference. Think back. Think about the people you opened yourself to, really opened yourself to. Be honest right now. How many of them came to you broken and left you empty? How many of them called it love, but what they really wanted was rescue? How many times did you pour out oil, sacred, irreplaceable oil into vessels that cracked the moment pressure arrived? You were not too much. You were too open to people who had never earned the right to your tenderness. Proverbs 4:23 does not say, protect your wallet. It does not say, protect your reputation. It says, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Your heart is not a hotel lobby where anyone can walk in off the street. It is a sanctuary. It has gates. It has a threshold. And God has been trying to teach you who holds the key. Here is the principle that will reframe your entire history with love. God did not withhold certain relationships to punish you. He withheld them to protect you from repeating the same soul wound under a brand new name. Read that again and let it settle. That relationship that ended, that door that closed, that person who walked away, you spent years calling that your greatest loss, but heaven was calling it your narrowest escape. Because here is what nobody tells you in church. You can be a loving, praying, faithful, God-fearing person and still have a pattern, a recurring wound with different faces, a magnetic pull toward people who take and take and take, because somewhere deep inside, some broken voice told you that love means sacrifice without reciprocity. That love means making yourself smaller so someone else can feel larger. That love means swallowing your needs and calling it grace. That is not grace. That is a soul wound operating in disguise. And God, in his fierce protective love for you, said, not again, not in this next season, not on my watch. Now I need to give you the framework that will change how you handle every relationship from this moment forward. I call it the 3 circles. Your inner circle is sacred. It holds covenant, truth, intimacy. Only the people God has confirmed belong here. This is not a busy room. It might hold one person, maybe two. These are the ones who have sat in your fire with you and not flinched. Your middle circle holds trusted counsel, tested people. Not perfect people, tested people. They have proven, over time and under pressure, that they are safe with your story. Your outer circle holds everyone else. You treat them with kindness. You love them as neighbors, but you do not hand them the key to your inner room. And here is the revelation that broke my spirit open when God first showed it to me. The reason your season of learning took this long is because you kept giving inner circle access to outer circle people. You gave the keys to your house to people who came to rob it. Not because you were stupid, because you were loving, because you were generous, because nobody ever sat you down and said, "Sacred access must be earned, not assumed." But hear this and let it land like the hand of God on your shoulder. You were not too much. You were too open to those who had not earned your tenderness. That is not a flaw. That is love that was never properly guarded. And that season is ending right now. Because the love that is coming in this next level is not desperate love. It is not rescue love. It is not performance love. It is companionship that does not drain your soul. It is friendship that does not cost you your peace. It is a restored table with family, with kindred spirits, with kingdom partnerships where you sit as a whole person, not a depleted one. God will not send new love into an unhealed house. He is finishing the renovation first. And you are almost ready to open the door. If this is hitting your spirit right now, type quietly in the comments, "I will not hand sacred access to the wrong people again." Let that be your covenant with yourself today. Because in the next section, I need to show you the one danger that can still sabotage everything, even after all this growth, even after all this healing, even after everything heaven has invested in you. And if you do not hear this warning, everything we have built in this message could still be undone. You just survived the lesson. Now I need you to do something harder. I need you to be wise about what walks through your door next. Because here is the truth that nobody warns you about, and it is the truth that has derailed more chosen ones than any wilderness season ever could. Right before the real thing arrives, the enemy sends a copy, a brilliant, convincing, emotionally resonant copy, not something ugly, not something obviously wrong, something that looks almost exactly right. And almost chosen one almost is enough to delay you again. Let me show you this in scripture before I go any further. In 2 Corinthians 11:14, the Apostle Paul pulls back the curtain and gives us a warning so sharp it should make your blood run cold. He writes, "Satan himself transforms himself into an angel of light." Not a demon, not darkness, an angel of light. Think about that. The enemy does not always come as addiction, poverty, or obvious destruction. He comes as the answer to your prayer. He comes as the person you have been describing to God for years. He comes as the business deal that finally makes the math work. He comes wearing the exact face of your deepest longing. And you, fresh out of a wilderness season, lonely, tired, hopeful, you are the most vulnerable you have ever been. That is not weakness, that is humanity. But it is also the open door he is watching for. Let me ask you something direct, and I need you to sit with this. Has someone from your past suddenly reappeared now that your peace has increased? Has someone been unusually flattering, speaking to your wounds, saying all the right things, almost too perfectly? Has a money opportunity arrived that appeals more to your desperation than to your wisdom? Because that is not coincidence. That is a counterfeit key. A counterfeit key looks identical to the real one. It has the same shape, the same weight, the same shine. But when you put it in the lock, it destroys the mechanism. And suddenly, the real door will not open anymore. Here is how you identify a counterfeit before it gets inside. A counterfeit demands urgency but never produces peace. God's real doors never make you feel like you have to decide in the next 20 minutes or lose everything. That pressure, that stomach tightening, sleep-stealing urgency, that is not the Holy Spirit moving. That is manipulation. A counterfeit flatters your wounds instead of honoring your wisdom. The wrong person does not see your strength, they see your scars, and they speak directly to the pain because pain is easier to hook than wisdom. A counterfeit creates fantasy but not clarity. It feels electric, it feels like destiny. But when you try to pray about it, when you go quiet and ask God for confirmation, all you hear is fog. Real blessing brings clarity after prayer. Counterfeits bring confusion and then try to convince you that confusion is just excitement. A counterfeit pressures access before trust is established. It wants to get close fast. It pushes past healthy boundaries. It wants your phone number, your bank information, your heart before your soul has had time to discern what it is actually carrying. A counterfeit speaks to your loneliness, not your covenant. And that last one, I need you to underline that in your spirit right now. Loneliness will accept almost anything that promises warmth, but covenant, the real, God-ordained connection you are being prepared for, covenant moves slowly, clearly, and it brings a peace that does not shake. Jesus himself said it plainly in Matthew 7:15. Beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravenous wolves. Wolves do not stand at the gate announcing themselves. They wait near the gate, patient, dressed for the occasion. They learn the language of the sheep. They know how to bleat. They know what you are hungry for. And they position themselves to be the answer right before God's real answer arrives. You have come too far. You have cried too many midnight tears. You have survived too many silent seasons. You have been refined in fires that would have destroyed anyone with less faith and less fiber. You do not, you will not, you cannot afford to hand the key of your new season to a wolf who spent 5 minutes learning your name. So right now, before we take one more step forward, I need you to make this agreement with God out loud. Say it. Mean it. Let it settle into your bones. I will not trade peace for quick relief. Say it again, because the enemy is counting on your exhaustion. He is counting on the fact that after years of waiting, you will be so hungry for the blessing that you will accept the first thing that looks like it. He has studied your pain with surgical precision. He knows exactly which package to wrap the counterfeit in. But you know the difference now. Peace is the password. If it does not bring peace, the deep, settled, unshakable peace of Philippians 4-7, it is not from God. Not yet. Not in this form. Guard the door, chosen one. Because if you can guard the door, if you can hold your discernment just a little longer, then the next thing I am about to tell you becomes possible. Not just blessing, overflow. Stay with me, because what I am about to say is going to rewrite every story you have been telling yourself about your own life. You called it waiting. Heaven called it training. You called it rejection. Heaven called it redirection. You called it loss. Heaven called it preparation for overflow. Every single thing that felt like it was working against you, every door that shut in your face, every love that walked away, every dollar that slipped through your hands, every year that seemed to evaporate without a single return, none of it was random. None of it was wasted. None of it was God forgetting you. It was God building you. That betrayal you cannot stop replaying. It trained your discernment. You can now read a room. You can now sense a false spirit before it ever opens its mouth. You will never again hand your heart to someone who has not earned it. That is not damage. That is armor. That long, agonizing waiting season, it trained restraint. You know now how to hold a blessing without crushing it. You know how to steward a gift instead of wasting it the moment it arrives. That loss, the one that still catches you off guard some Tuesday afternoon for no reason at all, it trained your dependence on God, not on people, not on your bank account, not on your own strength. You learned to lean on something that cannot be taken from you. And that kind of dependence is exactly what qualifies you to receive what is coming. The silence trained your listening. The loneliness trained your identity. The pressure trained your capacity. The hiddenness trained your humility. And these years you have been walking, they have been training your wisdom and your surrender. Let me ask you something direct. Do you know what happens when you give fine wine to someone who has never learned to taste? They waste it. They drink it like cheap soda. They do not understand what they are holding. But give that same wine to someone seasoned, someone who has lived, who has lost, who has survived, and they will hold that glass with reverence. They will understand its depth. They will not rush it. You are that person. The wealth that is coming, God cannot give it to someone who has not first learned that money is not salvation. You learned that the hard way. That qualifies you. The love that is coming, God cannot give it to someone who does not yet know the difference between desperation and genuine connection. You learned that distinction in the fire. That qualifies you. Now look at this. Really look at it. Moses was 80 years old when God said, "Now, go." Not 30, not 40, 80. Because Moses at 30 was impulsive and dangerous. Moses at 80 was broken, humbled, and finally ready to carry a nation. Caleb was 85 when he stood before Joshua and said, not whispered, not asked, declared, "Give me this mountain, not give me rest, not give me comfort. Give me the hardest assignment left, because I am finally equipped to take it." Anna, the prophetess, prayed in the temple for 60 years, waiting for one moment. And when that moment came, she was the one who recognized it. Not the young priests, not the scholars. The old woman whose entire life had been one long act of faithfulness in the dark. Sarah laughed at the promise because her body said it was impossible. But God did not need her body to agree. He needed her faith to finally stop fighting. And Abraham, 100 years old, held a baby who represented the fulfillment of a promise made 25 years earlier. Do you see what God is showing you? Their age was not evidence that they missed the window. It was evidence that what arrived came in mature hands. And now I need you to hear this, feel this, let it go all the way down. You are not late. You are seasoned. Say that again inside your spirit. Let it land. Let it break something loose. You are not a leftover. You are not a consolation prize. You are not someone time passed by. You are aged wine. You are roots that have pushed 40 feet deep through impossible ground. You are timber seasoned so long it does not bend, does not crack, does not fail under weight. You are a ship that was not built for the shallow water. You were built for the deep. And maybe, just maybe, the reason the blessing took so long is not because God was withholding it from you. Maybe the delay had nothing to do with punishment at all. Maybe the delay was not about keeping things from you. Maybe it was about making sure that when they came, they did not destroy you. If you are receiving that, say it out loud in your spirit right now. I am not late. I am seasoned. Say it like you mean it. Say it like it is the truest thing you have spoken all year. Because there is one final revelation still ahead in this message, and it changes everything. Not just how you see your past, it changes how you see your entire future. Let me ask you something that is going to cut straight to the bone. Have you ever gotten exactly what you prayed for and still felt empty inside? Have you ever had money in the bank but not a single person to call? Have you ever had someone lying beside you at night but felt more alone than when the bed was empty? That is not a blessing, that is a half-answered prayer. And God did not bring you through the fire of this soul lesson to give you a half-answered life. Here is what heaven has been building toward, and I need you to receive this with every part of who you are. Wealth without peace will spend itself trying to fill a hole it cannot name. Love without stability will collapse the moment the pressure comes. But what God is releasing over your life right now is neither one nor the other in isolation. It is both. At the same time, in the same season, because God does not do patchwork. God does wholeness. Look at what has been happening inside you during this long season. Your soul graduated. Your identity was refined in that fire until the false version of you burned away, and what remained was pure. Your discernment was sharpened. You can read a room, read a spirit, read a situation in ways you never could before the wilderness. Your access to toxic people was cut off, even when it hurt like surgery without anesthesia. Your house, your inner house, was healed of wounds you did not even know were bleeding. Your spirit was steadied by the very pressure that was meant to crack you. And your timing was ripened, the way fruit is ripened, not forced, not rushed, but brought to the exact moment of fullness. Chosen one, when all of those things converge at once, that is not random blessing raining down from the sky. That is integrated restoration. Proverbs 10:22 says it plainly. The blessing of the Lord makes rich, and he adds no sorrow with it. No sorrow. Read that again. No sorrow with it. Not wealth that wakes you up at 3 a.m., gripping your chest. Not love that costs you your identity just to keep it. Not favor that comes with a price tag attached in fine print. Clean, whole, uncontaminated. That is the level you are walking into. I want you to picture this. You wake up on an ordinary Tuesday morning. The light comes through the window, the way it does in early fall in New York, that clean October light that does not apologize for itself. And you lie there for a moment, and you realize something is different. The dread is gone. The familiar weight that used to sit on your chest before your feet even hit the floor, it is not there. Money is in order. Not because you hustled harder than everyone else, because divine favor works while you sleep. The right person walked through the right door and said your name in the right room. The relationship beside you does not drain you. It holds you. It sees you. It does not ask you to shrink. Prayer feels open again like a clear telephone line after years of static. And confidence rises in you, not because you are performing for anyone, not because you need the applause, but because you simply know who you are. That is the house with the lights back on. That is dry land after the flood. That is the oil that does not stop pouring. And here is the explosion. The line I need you to hold on to with both hands. God is not just restoring what was lost. He is restoring the version of you that can finally live inside the blessing. That is what was being built in the hidden season. Not just the blessing, the vessel. Because a broken vessel cannot hold abundance, it leaks. A wounded identity cannot receive love, it deflects. God needed you whole before he handed you the weight of what is coming. That is why it took this long. Not because you were forgotten, because you were being fitted. 2 hands open and steady, that is how you receive something priceless. 1 hand clutching old wounds. 1 hand reaching forward in anxiety, that is how blessing passes through and does not stay. You are standing now with both hands open, both steady, both clean. If this is your season, and I believe it is, do not sit in this moment quietly. Share this message right now with someone who has been through fire and still kept their heart soft. They need to hear this today, because in just a moment, I am going to speak directly to the person who feels they have been waiting too long. The one who is starting to wonder if the promise was ever real. And I need you to hear this final part with your spirit wide open. What comes next is the most important thing I will say in this entire message. I need to come back to your pain one more time, not to remind you how hard it was. You already know how hard it was. You lived it. You breathed it. You woke up inside it every single morning for years. I am coming back to it because the story your pain was telling you was a lie. You were told the lesson was about endurance. You thought passing the test meant learning how to hold on, how to white-knuckle your way through another winter, how to survive another betrayal, another closed door, another night where the silence of heaven felt deafening. But chosen one, God never called you to a life of beautiful survival. He called you to a life of authority. You were not born only to endure. You were not kept alive only to recover. You were not preserved through decades of fire, through grief that bent you nearly in half, through financial valleys that stripped your pride down to the bone just so you could arrive at the end of your days in maintenance mode, grateful to simply still be standing. No, that is not your inheritance. Isaiah 61:3 does not say he gave them the ability to cope with ashes. It says he gave them beauty for ashes, not instead of ashes, not beside the ashes, out of the ashes. A complete transformation of the raw material of your suffering into something glorious. And here is where I need to look you directly in the eye, because I know there is a voice in you, quiet, persistent, exhausted, that whispers the cruelest lie a human heart can believe. Too late for love, too late to be held by someone who actually sees you, too late to feel that electricity of being truly known by another soul. Too late for usefulness, your children have their own lives, the world moves too fast, nobody is asking for what you carry anymore. Too late for peace, too much has happened, too much has broken, the scar tissue runs too deep. Too late for restoration, too late for a beautiful final chapter. I need you to hear me reject that with everything I have. That is a lie. And it is the most dangerous lie the enemy has ever planted in the soil of your soul. Because here is what that lie does not account for. It does not account for the God who gave Abraham a son at 100 years old. It does not account for the God who called Moses at 80. It does not account for the God who sat beside a woman at a well in Samaria, a woman who had been handed back 5 times, who had been discarded 5 times, and instead of confirming her shame, gave her the first full revelation of his identity. He did not say to her, "It's too late for you." He said, "Go, tell what you know." And she became the first evangelist in human history, at the end of what the world called her story. Now listen to me with everything you have. If God carried you through the breaking, he did not do it just to leave you in pieces. Read that again. Let it go all the way down. A Japanese art form called kintsugi takes a shattered piece of pottery and repairs the cracks with gold. Not with paint to hide the damage, with gold. To honor it, to display it. The broken places become the most beautiful places, the places that catch the light, the places visitors stop to look at, the places that hold the most value. That is what God has been doing with you. Every crack in your life, every place you shattered in grief, in humiliation, in failure, he has been filling with gold. The world saw destruction. Heaven saw a masterpiece under construction. This is not theology. This is not comfort language to help you cope. This is the harvest. The harvest of hidden obedience on nights when nobody was watching. The harvest of purified desire, wanting the right things for the right reasons, because the fire burned the wrong motivations clean. The harvest of healed boundaries, knowing what you will carry and what you will not. The harvest of seasoned faith, the kind that does not need the feeling to show up, the kind that trusts in absolute darkness because it has been there before and knows who is in the dark. That harvest is not fantasy. It is already in the ground. And chosen one, it is ready to break the surface. The sunrise after the most brutal night does not ask permission to arrive. It does not check whether you have suffered enough. It does not wait for you to feel deserving. It simply arrives. And when it does, even a face that has been wet with tears all night long feels the warmth. Your night has been long. Longer than most people will ever understand. But the light breaking on the horizon right now, that is not imagination. That is God honoring everything you went through in the dark. Put your hand over your heart right now. Say it out loud, right where you are. My lesson did not end in loss. It ends in restoration. Say it again. Let it fill the room. Because the next level is not a dream. It is not wishful thinking for people who still have youth on their side. It is the promised destination for every soul that went through the lesson and came out refined. The altar of your life that was torn down, God is rebuilding it, stone by stone. And this time, it will not fall. Now, before we go into what that rebuilt altar actually looks like in your daily life, your finances, and the love that is already moving in your direction, I need to ask you one question, and I need you to answer it honestly, from the deepest place in your chest. Do you finally believe you are worth what God has been preparing for you? Because everything that comes next depends on your answer. You made it to the end of this message, and I need you to understand that was not by accident. Because what I am about to say in the next few minutes is the reason heaven led you here in the first place. You have sat through this entire journey. You have felt the pain named out loud. You have heard the lesson identified. You have felt the fire acknowledged. And now, right now, we stand together at the threshold. Not the threshold of survival, the threshold of arrival. Let me summarize what just happened to you in this season of your life. The lesson was real. Every sleepless night, every tear that hit the pillow at 2 a.m., every prayer that felt like it went nowhere, it was real. Nobody is dismissing it. Nobody is wrapping it in cheap comfort. The pain was costly. You paid a price that only the people closest to you will ever partially understand. But chosen one, the transformation is visible. If you look honestly at who you were 5 years ago and who you are right now, something in you has changed that money cannot buy and time cannot manufacture. You know things now. You carry something now. You discern things now that once would have destroyed you. That is not a small thing. That is everything. Ecclesiastes 7:12 says it plainly. Wisdom is a shelter, as money is a shelter. But the advantage of knowledge is this: wisdom preserves those who have it. You survived your season because wisdom was being built in you. And now that wisdom becomes your protection in the next chapter. Here is what the next level actually looks like for you. Wealth is coming, but not as a lottery ticket dropped from the sky. It is coming as provision that makes sense, as open doors that align with your gifts, as honorable increase that does not require you to compromise your integrity to receive it. The kind of abundance that Deuteronomy 28:8 describes, where the Lord commands the blessing on your storehouse, on everything you put your hand to. And love is coming, but not the desperate, gasping kind you may have reached for before. It is coming as protected connection, as restored tenderness, as right alignment between your heart and another soul that God Himself has prepared and positioned. Song of Solomon 2:7 says it like a warning and a promise at the same time. Do not awaken love until it so desires. Your love is coming in its time, and it will be whole. But before you walk through that gate, there are things you must release. Right now, in this moment, release the old desperation. That frantic energy of chasing what was always meant to find you, lay it down. Release every counterfeit attachment, every connection that cost you more than it gave you, every relationship that looked like a door but was actually a drain. Let it go completely. Release the panic about time. You are not behind. God does not operate on a calendar that runs out. Abraham received his promise at 100 years old. Anna, the prophetess, saw the Messiah at 84. Your age is not your expiration date. It is your qualification. Release the fear of hope, because that is the deepest wound of all, the one where you stopped letting yourself believe, because believing and then being disappointed felt like more than your heart could take one more time. Choose to believe again. Right now, that is an act of holy courage, and release the shame about the past. Every choice you wish you could unmake, every door you opened that you should have walked past, every year you feel you wasted. Romans 8:28 does not say some things work together for good. It says all things. God wastes nothing. Now open your hands, not clenched fists reaching for what you think you deserve, not folded arms protecting what little you have left. Open hands, palms up. The posture of someone who has learned that receiving is as sacred as giving. An oil lamp lit at dusk does not argue with the darkness, it simply burns, and every room it enters is changed. That is who you are now. Lord, let what was learned in pain now become protection in promise. Let what was forged in fire now become oil for the next season. Let what was delayed now arrive in peace. Let wealth come clean. Let love come whole. Let this next chapter honor everything they survived. Seal it, Father. Seal it over every life receiving this word right now. If this message spoke to your season, write in the comments right now, I am ready for the next level. Let it be your declaration. Let it be your stake in the ground. Let heaven record the moment you stopped waiting and started stepping. Subscribe and stay close, because the next message is for those who can already feel it. That rare, sacred shift when God begins moving your relationships, your resources, and your assignment all at once. And chosen one, hear this as the final word I leave you with tonight. The lesson is not your identity anymore. The wisdom is. And from that wisdom, God is about to build something beautiful. Walk in it.